Okay, in today's masterclass, I'm not necessarily going to show you an exercise to get better at and describe technique. I'm actually going to show you a breathing technique that I utilize throughout a lot of compound movements. It's a fantastic way of ensuring that you have good structure, good stability, and you can generally utilize this and get those last couple of reps out. Whereas a lot of people that are unfamiliar with this technique, and look, it's very common, it's not my little secret, but people that are not familiar with it often fail or fall short of the rep targets that they've set themselves, and they wonder why they can't squeeze out their last one. And it's generally because their breathing is incorrect. You know, a lot of people that are unfamiliar with their breathing, when they're training, will hold it for too long, and therefore they obviously get quite exhausted, quite fatigued, and they have to play catch up, or they're breathing at the wrong point within the exercise itself. So I want to demonstrate on an incline Smith machine bench, but I want to make it clear that this technique is very much adaptable to most exercises. You can do the same technique on a flat bench, on a shoulder press, on a leg press, on a deadlift, on a squat, because you're using air to brace and you're using air to compose yourself. So that is the key. It's not just about the physical, it's also about the mental in this particular instance. So I've got it nice and close, so you don't need to see the actual completion of the exercise. I want you to see what I'm doing within this. So I'll set up. I won't go to fatigue or anything like that. I'll just do a couple of reps to demonstrate. So firstly, obviously set up. Chest is always high. In this particular exercise, you don't want to have a sunken chest. So I see a lot of people when they get heavily fatigued at the back end of a set, they start to push through their shoulders and they're dropping their chest. We want to keep our chest up the entire time, because at the end of the day, that's what we're working. All right, so lifting up, chest is high, okay, I'm pressing through. This is my movement. Now, as I fatigue and as I get to the back end, I'm going to pause at the top because that's the safest position, right? I'm more likely to be able to continue if I'm here. If I pause here, I've then got to get the weight up and I'm fighting gravity. So the best position on this particular exercise is here. I take a deep breath. It fills my lungs, it lifts my chest up. I hold that breath in and then I do a single. Then I release at the top. I take a deep breath, I do a single, and I release at the top. I take a deep breath, I do a single, and then I release at the top. So what we're effectively doing is we're filling our lungs, we're performing one rep, okay? The set's not over until you've completed, until you've racked the weight. So if you want to break down the set into singles, do it, okay? That is a really good way of getting through those extra couple. But the technique itself, where I take a deep breath in, I feel my lungs, my chest is elevated, so straight away I've got good posture, particularly in this particular exercise. But think about it, if you've got a barbell back squat, you take a breath, your lungs fill, straight away your posture improves. Therefore, your chances of you doing the exercise better in terms of technique have heightened, right? But we take that lung full of air, we hold that breath, okay? A lot of people release air when they're pressing away from the body. You're deflating your lungs when you're pressing away. It's a... what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't work well in terms of what you're trying to achieve. You want to keep your body solid. You don't want it actually moving or deflating when you're pressing against it. You want that rigidity. So we're pressing through the muscle as it's elevated and as the lungs are full of air, providing a really rigid foundation to push from, okay? So when you apply this technique under huge duress and fatigue, which is what we want to accomplish when we're lifting, you know, we're looking for an RPE of 8 or 9, and we're going to 1 or 2 reps to failure. The last couple of reps have to be hard, and they generally are. But this is a really good foundational technique that you can utilize to squeeze out those last couple of reps that you may not have been able to do if you were just trying to run the reps consecutively with momentum, and then you just get stuck. If you can get to that last rep, and you know you've only got 1 or 2 left in you, you lock out. In this instance, with the incline bench press, you lock out because that's a safe place to be, okay? Take that breath, drop, control, press, release. Take a breath, drop, control, release, and then press again. And this is the same thing you can do on a shoulder press, same technique on a barbell back squat, on a deadlift, on a leg press. It not only gives you the opportunity to reset your body and make sure that you are fundamentally in the best position possible to squeeze out another rep or 2, it also gives you a moment to refocus, okay? Because often the mind can go haywire under duress. When the body's screaming at you because it's under a lot of pain or discomfort, there's a huge amount of adrenaline, you've got blood pumping everywhere, your breathing starts to get erratic. You can compose yourself through this technique and just sharpen your focus in and really feel the muscle and really focus in on that movement for that 1 or 2 extra reps. It is an unbelievable technique that I highly recommend everyone utilize and really take effect. Now, if your breathing is different to this, it's going to take you a while to recreate the habit and rewire the way you do it. So I'd start a little bit lighter, get used to the movement, understand where you're at and how you can implement this technique better. And remember, it's only to be utilized at the back end of a set. Like when you start fresh and you're feeling pretty good, you're probably going to pump through 3 or 4 reps before you take a breath because you're just in a really good spot. It's only under fatigue on heavy compound movements primarily, and when there is a bit of fatigue, as I mentioned on board, that you might have to transition to this technique to further advance the exercise. But I encourage everyone to give it a go. If you're stuck on a weight, if you're stuck on an exercise and you can't progress, this could be the way. It may not be what you're trying to do. It may not be the weight. It may actually be you and your technique. And if you can formulate a really good technique around this breathing to better advance yourself with progress, well, then we're going to go a long way to making sure that that happens. So I welcome any comments on this particular technique. I've found it highly successful for a number of years now, so please try and utilize it on most exercises. Isolation ones you can use as well. There's no reason you can't use it because it's not going to hinder your progress or your ability to do the exercise. It's just not going to fundamentally allow you to lift heavy or anything like that, but it's still going to give you the opportunity to refocus and sort of compose yourself. So if you want to use it on an isolation like a tricep push down or a bicep curl, by all means go for it. Love to hear your thoughts, and thank you once again on this breathing masterclass.